Hey, everybody, welcome to the Sound Paths podcast. My name is Joshua Bruner, and this is our second episode. And we're lucky to have Andrea Cortez from Austin. Andrea runs her own business providing sound therapy and sound healing for people, and it's called Mind Body Music Center. And I'm going to let her talk a little bit about her journey and what she does for a living using music to help people. So, hi, Andrea, how are you doing?
Hi, I'm doing good. Thank you for having me here.
Oh yeah, it's a pleasure. This is a podcast that's exploring how people got to where they are today with music, and I'm particularly interested in people who work with music therapy, sound healing, but also ambient musicians and also sound artists. So I wanted to have you on because I met you in Austin. We conversed online and set up a show together at your space at the time in Austin, and had such a great experience with you and your hospitality and just like sharing that space with people in Austin and making music for them. So then I was like, obviously I want to have you on the podcast and talk about that journey more, because I really don't know much beyond what you're doing now, and I'm curious how you got from being a young Andrea who just got interested in music to this person who has brought so much to other people through the format. So can you tell us a little bit about how you first got introduced to playing instruments?
Yeah, so my first instrument was the piano. My parents got a piano in the house, and my sister was taking lessons. She was an older sister. So she was actually like playing songs, but I was about 6 or 7, just playing around on the piano. I mean, there's pictures of me like just like always like having my hands on the piano even before I took lessons. So I think I was like already just drawn to it. And so then I started taking lessons at 8 years old. Um, the teacher was okay. I mean, it wasn't the greatest experience for music lessons at the time. It was a teacher in the neighborhood, and I actually um, didn't really appreciate the lessons at the time. But I think after that is when I started really developing my my own hearing for sound on the piano. So I think it was about middle school. Well, no, I do remember when I was around third grade. I do remember thinking that I wanted to grow up and be a famous pianist, although that was just I don't know. So, but middle school though, I started writing my own music. My parents got me an electric keyboard, and this was in the 80s, so there was like all this, electronic synth pop music happening. So I was like making my own beats on the keyboard, and um, and I, for me, I was extremely anxious and quiet. I was a super introverted kid, and so it was like my piano was my best friend. The keyboard was always, I would just take it with me everywhere, and um, I just remember spending a lot of time with it. I mean, I had, a few close friends, and that's how I was growing up, just like so introverted. But music was like always a part of every day or every week. Um, and I remember in middle school, they had a talent show in 8th grade. It was the last day of school. So you could, do whatever you wanted for the talent show. And being extremely shy, I don't even know how I did this, but I went in front of the whole school, brought my keyboard out, put my little speakers up, and like started my little my jam with the beats and the synthesizer and all that. And in front of, this was in the gym, in front of the whole school on the bleachers. And uh, I would never have done, I didn't even like to talk in front of people. Like I would never have done that if it wasn't for music. And so um, I played, and then after everyone was like, yeah, people were standing up and clapping. And it was just like an extremely powerful experience for me. I didn't know that music um, had that power until that moment, I think, of just like feeling like expression of who I was. And for me to be able to do that in a way that I'd never been able to do, to connect with
Yeah.
people.
Oh, that's
Hmm.
cool to hear. I had a similar thing where I was also introverted and pretty quiet person, but when I started playing music, yeah, that felt so freeing. Although when I got on stage, I could never like look the audience in the eye. Like I would always like put on sunglasses or just keep my eyes shut the whole time. Um, because I could not understand musicians who could go to a microphone, look out into a crowd, and make direct eye contact with people. I was like, wow, how do you do that? Um, that would pull me out
Yeah,
of the moment so hard. But that's so cool to hear that you were like rocking out some synth jams
I
in middle
know.
school. That's awesome.
I
That's probably like my favorite thing to learn about people is like, what were you doing at first as a kid? And because it's going to obviously be so much different than what people are doing today, especially if they're in like sound therapy and stuff like that.
Mhm.
So that's really cool to hear. And so like at what point do you feel like you started to make a shift towards who you are today as a musician? Like what point in your life did you start to um, shift more towards using sound as a way to help people relax and heal?
I think that it was, I started playing guitar and I started singing in high school. And by the way, you had mentioned that you don't like to look out at the audience. And I was just thinking there are kind of like two different breeds, maybe not just two different breeds, but there are two breeds of musicians, like those who can be like really like entertainers and those who can like, who have this deep connection with music, but yeah, definitely don't like the spotlight. So I'm like that. And I found, I think for most of my life after that, it was that I didn't like the music for entertainment. I liked it because it was connecting to people, because it was helping someone. And so I think in high school, I started realizing that I started singing, playing guitar, writing songs on the guitar. Um, the first time I can remember is my uncle was sick and he was passing away, and we went to go see him, and I took my guitar and I sang for him, and he was in pain. And I was a teenager, I hadn't heard of music therapy, but I sang for him, and I remember him just falling asleep actually, but really appreciating the sound. It's so soothing for him. And I left, he had fallen asleep, and when my aunt told me later that he woke up and was like, where's Andrea? Where's the music? Asking for me. And so since I think it was around that time, I started taking my guitar and singing for people in my family. Um, and it felt like spiritual experiences too, just like um, singing and connecting with people in that way. So I think that was the beginning of it. And I had always wanted to do something that was like maybe in social work. Or so when I graduated from high school, I didn't go straight into university, but I um, started taking classes at Austin Community College and was still studying music there, taking some general music ed. And then I met a music therapist when I was 19, which I think back to this and think how fortunate I was to find what I wanted to do so young. At 19 years old, I knew right away. I met her. Um, she had a center in Austin. She still does. And I volunteered with her and other music therapists. I observed sessions, and I was just blown away. I was like, this is like what I'm supposed to be doing is helping people with music in this way.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, that's I was talking to Damian Duke, another Austin or Texas-based artist that you know. Um, and yeah, he was telling me a very similar story about his age and finding like his path. I think he was like around 16, he was saying, which is just for me, it was the opposite. Like I was much older, I think, maybe like mid 30s. So this was about like 6 or 7 years ago. Before that, I was like in Peter Pan mode where I was just still into rock and roll and
Mm.
like
Hmm.
getting on stage and working people up and building their
Mm.
energy up. And then yeah, when I got into my mid 30s and started to realize that, my lifestyle wasn't as healthy uh, as it should have been, and it was catching up to me, then I started to recognize the power of sound to kind of like help me slow down and reset and
Mm.
sleep better. Um, and so, yeah, it's just really interesting to hear people that have been able to find that path earlier on in their life, as
Mm.
opposed to later on, like I found it. So that's so cool. And then, so from there, like, what was your training to get to a point to where you felt comfortable opening your own practice and sharing that with people?
Yeah. So just to make another comment on that, on how I developed this, also this draw to music, is that I knew that music was helping me. So I just wanted to mention that because I was so introverted, I felt that it was like my medicine. I felt a refuge in music, and I knew it. I knew I always felt better after I sang, or I always connected better with people after I shared music and sang with them or played music with them. Um, so it just made sense when I heard about music therapy that, um, well, yeah, that makes sense for me to study that. So, in I started out at Sam Houston State for a year. I went to that program. That's in Huntsville, Texas. And then I ended up transferring to Colorado State University, where I finished my bachelor's and my master's degree in music therapy. And so that program was focused on neurologic music therapy. It's um, a specific uh, focused area around actually rehabilitation and the nervous system and people who have brain injury and stroke or Parkinson's, neurologic disorders. And so in my training at the time, my director had done a lot of research in how rhythm can help rehabilitate walking patterns and gait patterns, which are walking patterns. And so this was the focus when I was there at the time. It was very much focused around um, motor rehabilitation, so rehabilitating movement, coordinated movement, and speech also, because speech is really closely related to motor movement and coordination, the oral motor, muscles. And um, there is a technique actually for speaking that we would use, which is hand tapping rhythm, um, hand tapping the phrases that we were working on for someone who's lost speech. Um, and this would help them to speak more articulated and to initiate speech. Um, so there's actually a connection between body movement and speech as well. Um, and so we used, basically was the idea that an external rhythm or an external rhythmic stimulus, even a metronome could help, but some kind of steady rhythm could help to retrain movement. Um, and they were finding that it was even better than just physical therapy alone for people who had lost this brain function, like movement because of a stroke or brain damage. Um, and even Parkinson's, with a degenerative brain disease, they're losing the timing in their brain. Um, and and music can help with them too. And actually, they have a problem with initiating movement. They'll get stuck. And so songs can help them to initiate a movement, to get them going again. So Oliver Sacks was a researcher and a neurologist and a author who wrote a book called Musicophilia, and he talks a lot about these different ways that music has been used related to the nervous system and rehabilitating the brain through using music. I don't know if
Yeah,
you've
that's
heard of
really,
him.
yeah, that's stuff that fascinates me a lot is the interaction between sound waves and the brain, and the influence that it can have, especially like you're talking about on the rhythms, the other rhythms of the body, like walking and speech and stuff. And having a young child, like I notice so much about how rhythms and tactile sensations, and also just like how my voice can alter her, how she is, like especially when it's time to put her down for a nap or go to sleep at night. And there are these rhythms that she really prefers, and other times, uh she might get to a point where she's like moved on from that rhythm, and you have to find the new rhythm that will
Yeah.
get her there. And so and now she's starting to bang on pots and pans, and I can start clapping, and she'll start joining in the same
That's
rhythms as me.
awesome.
And
Yeah,
it's just, yeah.
that's so awesome. I mean, that's a great area for using music. It's baby development and early childhood development. Music is a wonderful tool to have in there. I think also I was reading a study a while ago about bouncing babies, bouncing babies with listening to a certain song. This is also helping their development, just like basic bouncing to the rhythm, singing songs.
Yeah, I'll put her on my knee at the piano, and like from about I would start doing this around 3 months old to about 6 or 7 months old. She just like, I would play it, and I would try and get her to play it, and she was just like, I don't want to touch this thing, and I don't want to make the noises. And now she's at a point to where she's just so excited, and like hears the
Oh,
sounds and starts banging on it and
that's so
exploring it.
cool.
And yeah, it's so cool to see that progression. And yeah, so that's really cool. You have such an in-depth knowledge of sound and how it can be of benefit to humans. So that's so valuable to share with the community. So there you are in Austin, Texas, and you've gathered this education, and now you're at the point to where you want to open up your own space and start sharing this with your community. Like, can you tell me a little bit about that journey of opening a business? Because that's like such a daunting thing for a lot of people, I know myself included. But like you're becoming a business person, but at the same time you're using that business to facilitate a therapeutic use of sound. So can you talk about that process a little bit?
Yeah, that's a very difficult process. It's not like my natural personality to be a business person, right? Luckily, my dad's an accountant, so he's been on my team the whole time. And I've had other people on my team help me actually get incorporated and help me learn about business. That wasn't in my training either. So, uh, figuring that out along the way, the biggest thing that was helpful was as I graduated, I started contracting as a music therapist in different populations, working with different populations of people, working in the hospital with people on the rehabilitation unit, working um, in people's homes with children with developmental disabilities, um, working in nursing homes. So I was all in these different facilities, also going into people's homes, but I was doing more of a traditional music therapy um, interventions. And so that I decided that I wanted people to come to me. I wanted my clients to try to see if I could get people to come to me, because actually the model that I was looking at was the Center of Music Therapy that I originally went to and found out about music therapy here in Austin. I saw her model that she was having people come and do sessions. She had other therapists working for her. So I I tried that. I went out on my own and got a space and had clients coming to me. And I did have contracting music therapists working with me also, but this was all traditional music therapy. It was sustainable because we have some I guess you call systems in Texas that support music therapy services that are free for families with people with developmental disabilities, so they could sign up and get these services, and then I could get clients coming to me this way. Sometimes it was private pay, clients finding me. So traditional music therapy was how I got into creating a business for myself. And I say that traditional music therapy because I was working with a different population than I'm working with now. And so now I'm addressing adults in the general, working with adults in the general population who are dealing with anxiety or stress, managing stress, also teaching sound meditation. So it's more in the area of wellness, emotional wellness, well-being, and the work that I do, it's not like I'm a counselor, a psychologist, or I'm going into deep processing with my clients. This is more of helping people to regulate their nervous system, to get out of fight or flight states, to decrease the effects of stress in the body, and to learn the tools of how to manage daily life and stressors through the use of sound meditations, and learning how to do these kinds of mindfulness practices with sound. Um, so so there was a transition. I think it was around 2011 where I first started um, getting into sound meditation, and then for myself, and then from there, like slowly bringing it into my practice. And actually, I started introducing it to some of my clients who were traditional music therapy. I was working with a woman who had a brain injury, and she lost her speech. We were working on getting some vocalization out. She had she was non-ambulatory from her brain injury. She could only move one hand. And in the sessions, I started working on meditations with her, which I was like, I don't know how this is going to go, but this is like really feeling like this is where I'm going. And so I feel like this might help her. And it actually did, because we found out that so much of what was holding her voice back was tension from anxiety during the day, and tension she didn't know how to release. And so we started working on learning meditation and relaxation for her body, and now she's able to shift into that place where she can open her voice up more and be able to get more words out.
Yeah, it's incredible how much better the body and brain function by taking the time to slow down and spend that time just letting your rhythms, your electrical rhythms within your body, even to kind of recalibrate and reset a little bit, because we get amped up and stuck in these really rapid paced rhythms, and just to take the time to slow down to these slower rhythms that our body naturally has, and to give them that space is so powerful. Um, yeah, that sounds amazing. And another thing that I'm really appreciative of your approach is that you are um, very open-minded towards using new tools like sonification techniques. For instance, using biofeedback to sonify the electrical rhythms of plants. For instance, I know you have been playing harp duets with plants in the last couple of years. And so, yeah, I just appreciate that you're so open-minded and bringing all of this knowledge, and blending it with newer technologies too. So do you want to talk a little bit about like some of your experiences playing music with plants?
Yeah, and so it was you when you came to Austin, you brought the mini sprout. That was the first time I saw the plant music device. Um, and and then I was just like, I have to get one of these. So, and I also think this, maybe this is part of like originally like when I was young, like in middle school, I was into electronic music. So like somehow this was coming back also getting back into like using these devices and stuff. So, but yeah, so then I got the MIDI Sprout and then Plant Wave as I got two more Plant Waves that they, upgraded. Um, and it just really opened up some connections for me about nature, about connecting to nature. And, um, and I mean, it just all started blending together. I think also for me, some of my background for traditional medicines and indigenous traditions, because my background is my family's from Mexico, and so we have these indigenous medicines that are in our family line and that have been part of what I've seen in around my family, and I think that going to school, I became very, very focused on the science, of course, because I mean, in music therapy, it was very important that like everything was evidence based, everything is research based, and for a good reason to get validity in this practice. Um, but I think that as I came into sound meditation, and then when the plant music came into my life, it was like opening me back up to like, well, wait a minute, what about these medicines of nature? What about these medicines of reconnecting to nature? And these are in I was thinking to myself, this is part of your family's traditions too. Um, and so I think it really opened me up to connecting to nature, but also to bring it into my work as well, and to bring in more, but also to consider, the medicine wheel. The indigenous medicine wheel has like the elements of fire and water and air and earth. And as I was thinking about it, I was like, sound is the fundamental element. It's like part of that system too. It's the the element that is the the framework of what all these other elements are based on. And so yeah, that just working with the plants just opened up all these ideas, and I think I've been bringing in more connecting to nature into my meditations that I'm recording also.
Yeah, I'm always fascinated by, I grew up, we're all taught like if you're in space, if you're floating out in space, um, there is no sound. And I always thought that was true. There's just sound is something that can only happen within a bubble of air, uh, where the vibrations can happen. But it turns out that um, they're finding that these black holes are emitting massive sound waves, generally in the key of B flat, like
Wow.
40 octaves below what we
Whoa.
can hear. These
Wow.
massive sound tones are shaping the solar systems around these black holes. And so sound is this fundamental core element to existence in the universe and how these systems form. So yeah, you're right. It is an element, and we don't think of it as much that way, but it totally is. And what you were saying too about, this technology where we can sonify um, things like plants and the human body and things like that. Um, I just appreciate how open-minded you are, and that you're connecting it to your heritage as well. I was reading a book on biofeedback, sonification. And in a clinical setting, they were working with a Native American man who was a war veteran and an alcoholic. And so they were helping him through a lot of this stuff using EEG biofeedback. And he quit drinking, and his
Mm.
life completely turned around. He became a healer, which was his family's lineage.
Mm.
And his entire life shifted after experiencing his own rhythms through sound. And he brought the rest of his tribe into this lab, and they
Oh my
did
gosh.
a blessing ceremony on the
Mm.
computers,
Oh my
and dubbed
gosh.
they like dubbed it as like a new sacred medicine, basically,
Oh
in this, the
wow.
way the book was describing it. And it just really touched me. Like I
Mm.
said, like how, you know, there I meet a lot of people in the Western world who are very closed off to this idea of sonification, and they don't understand it, and they don't
Mm.
put very much thought into it whatsoever.
Mm.
But to hear people with more traditional respect for these elements being so open-minded as to um, seeing the validity and how much this technology, when used in this way, can benefit human beings, that just like really opens me up a lot and makes me feel all the feelings. And I just like,
Yeah.
I don't know, I love hearing that. I love hearing that a lot.
Yeah, I was reading an article too about this and watching some videos, some Native American videos also recently about the need for balance and technology and connecting to nature at the same time. We need this balance. Um, it's not like we need to get rid of the technology.
Yeah.
So, and because like, I mean, some people, might be like, it's all nature, this is everything tech is harmful and like, but it really is about balancing it. And that is another way that the plant music is kind of like, it symbolizes that in bringing tech and the nature itself together. Um, I think that um, I do think it's important that tech is like um, a way to communicate, then open people up, even if it has to be to nature, if it has to be through tech. I just got this app um, that identifies any bird. So if I go outside, it's called Merlin bird or something like that, and I go outside and I can record the birds I'm hearing in my backyard, and immediately it'll register the bird and it'll show me the sound graph of the bird, so you can see like the what it looks like, and then it'll automatically give you it's the mockingbird, and then it's this, because there'll be few birds in my backyard, and it gives me who's talking, who's singing, and then it shows me they have a database of other birds, and so I can compare the little visual sound graphs, like if it looks the same. So you kind of like you can hear it and you can see it to see like, oh, is that the same bird? Um, just so you can like identify like if it was the same bird that you're hearing, the ones that they have on in their library database. Um,
Wow.
and it's just so it's like it's I was reading this book. It's called How to Do Nothing, and that's how I found out about this app. It's because she was talking about how we um, need to and how we can connect to the spaces that we are in to realize um, that we have a community of not just humans, but the community of animals that are around us. Who are they? Who's what birds are singing? What plants are we seeing? Like this is like the first basic step to reconnecting is knowing the space that we're in, where we live. And so she said she used the app to help her to be able to identify them, and then you know um, then when she's walking, she can hear them and she knows, oh, that's Mockingbird. Oh, that's so and so. And it's like giving us more presence in the spaces that we're in, and technology helps that. So that's amazing. I think that's an example of being able to bring the two together.
Yeah, I like the idea of using technology to even counterbalance the harms that technology might create, like, staring at a computer screen all day at work and stuff like that. But you can use technology to help you relax as well. So it's like any other tool in creation that's ever been made. You can use it for different purposes. And so I think a lot of people don't put that together right away and realize that this thing that they're sick of using in their day-to-day life could also be applied in a way that would benefit their life greatly. Like in this case, like that used to be the job of, bef- before, when we had more community-based uh, lives in living in nature, there was an elder or a group of elders in our community that could teach us what those birds are,
Mm-hmm.
and we grew up learning from them that way. And
Mm-hmm.
that's not a part of our community as much these days,
Yeah.
in a broad sense. So to
Yeah.
have this technology used in a way to almost educate you in the same way that someone um, in your community way back would have been doing for you,
Yeah.
it's pretty special. And like it's a cool way to view technology, that you can use it as this teacher, this way of like
Yeah.
connecting to the world around you in a better way.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that I want to do more with like putting a message out about what I'm doing with the plant music and with the harp and creating these pieces, and about what we're talking about. I want to be able to put more of a message on helping people to connect to nature more, because when they see this live, when they see the plants creating these sounds, um, and then they see like, oh, it changes, I'm getting close to the plant and the plant's changing its sounds, it's responding to me, this, people just like go crazy. They're just like, what, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And just some of the interactions, because when I've done it live, I let people come up and like, okay, let's interact with the plant and see how the sound changes. um, I've had some pretty interesting and very deeply moving experiences. People are like deeply moved by it, and feeling that reconnection to nature is like, um, feeling, it's like remembering a part of yourself that you forgot or something. It's really moving. Yeah.
Yeah, well put. Yeah. Well, I want to wrap things up and just say that like that was a really fascinating story, from just learning about your path through music. I appreciate you sharing all of that with us, and yeah, I'm excited to learn more. And I just want to thank you for joining me here on the podcast, and sharing your story with the people that are going to view this as well.
Yeah,
So
thank you.
yeah, so
Thank
thanks
you for
thanks for
having
that.
me.
Hmm. Yeah, and then this isn't like a one and done type of thing. I'm sure I'll check back in with you in the
Yeah.
future and see if you want to come back on the pod.
Yeah, that'd be fun. I'd love to. This was fun.
Cool. Well, thanks so much, Andrea. And we'll catch up with you soon. You can check out Andrea's work at mindbodymusiccenter.com. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes, you can head there, or you can go to Instagram, and she's at Mind Body Music Center there. So definitely check out her work. If you're in Texas, drop by her spot. And uh, thanks so much for making space to listen, everyone.